Sometimes I think it's hard for us, not as humans, not as, adversaries, but as sports fans. Sometimes it's hard to admit when one, your team may not be as good as you think it is, and two, your or one of your arch nemesis rivals might be better than you, even though the record doesn't say it. And I think sometimes we must admit that. Hey everybody, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic, and welcome back. We're continuing our 2025 NFL recap, as we are now in the NFC South. And sometimes we have to admit when a team is better, or at least future is brighter, than your team. Even though the local reporters who've been covering this team for probably over a decade and then some don't think so. But I think, yeah. So today we'll be talking about the New Orleans Saints, a team that I think they're better than the record shows, and I think they're very quietly becoming dangerous. Let's talk about the Saints. Like I said, sometimes it's hard to admit when you think you're better. Now, sometimes you are, and sometimes it doesn't matter. But sometimes you have to look at a team and be realistic and not obnoxious. Which some of you Saints fans have been a little bit obnoxious lately. Or you were during the Drew Brees era. And, of course, Katrina. And keep bringing up Katrina. And keep bringing it up. And keep bringing it up. Yeah. And now, the only thing I can say that makes me smile is that we Buccaneers send Drew Brees to retirement, and in Drew Brees' last potential chance to win the Super Bowl, we won it. And sadly enough, you guys have never got close since '09, so sounds more of a you problem. But now we're talking about the future. And the future for the Saints has been a lot of dead money, aging players, and some of those aging players are players that you guys have drafted. Jordan, Kamara comes to mind. And now it's getting to the point where now you have to make the hard decisions, which is either to cut the old and cut the excess and make financial decisions based on strategy, not based on what your gut tells you. And I think in a weird gamble for New Orleans, you guys, I think you are. I think you guys, the quarterback pickup with Tyler Shaw was, as of right now, the better acquisition quarterback compared to everyone else in the division. Which is funny because Bryce Young, Michael Penix, and Tyler Shaw are all roughly a year or two apart from each other from drafting. And Baker has been on 7,000 different teams. So everybody came to their team kind of like not by choice in a way, and they're making do. Atlanta not so much, but we'll get to them next time. But for New Orleans, even with all that, because I still believe Spencer Rattler was the future, even though he only won one game and his one, I did not know his record was like 1-10. So, but I had you guys 6-11. My biggest concern was Kellen Moore was such a last edition head coach selection that I kind of felt like New Orleans was kind of like, we need a head coach. And I kind of feel like you guys settled with Kellen Moore, not reaching for Kellen Moore. And then as the season went on, You kind of felt like there was still some identity of the Saints there, especially on the defensive side. And then there was a time where you made the decision saying we have to see what Tyler Shaw's going to do, because there was a good thought that maybe you'll be going into next year as a top 10 pick or a top 5 pick and potentially be looking at potential another quarterback. And around we go with that carousel of teams basically getting a quarterback later in the draft. Didn't work out, and you come back around and you try to go all in this time with a top 5 pick and maybe making some drastic trade decisions to hopefully think that that guy at number 1, 2, or 3 is the guy. It's a gamble that every team has done. From the Andrew Luck to the RG3s to the Cam Newtons to Jameis Winston, we all seen teams make that gamble. We get it, and it's scary. But 6-11 was your highest point. I felt like the Falcons was going to be better. I think the Panthers were on the right track. And Tampa, I still believe, was solid. But the NFC South is still the NFC South, so I kind of felt like we will cannibalize each other for a mediocre record, and we did again. So we're not removing that stigma of the worst division in football again. But if things went really south, like Spencer had not done it, the aging players showed their age, and Tyler Shaw couldn't do it, then 3-14. But you guys went 6-11, so congratulations. I know that's not technically like a triumph, since that's the highest point of 6 wins, but if you really look into the games, even just looking at the scoreboard, but if you actually really look into it, the Buffalo game, the San Francisco, the Arizona game, there was probably 3, maybe even 4 or 5 wins in there that could have shipped a 6-11 season to a 9-8, and we will be talking about the Saints being so close to a playoff berth. Granted, the worst division in football, but still we'll be talking about a Saints playoff berth. And that's why I'm saying the Saints scare me, because they felt like they knew their season was going to be below 500. But the way the season went, it felt like there were like a few wins here and there that could have shifted this thing into a 9-win season and potentially a division title. That's what scares me. Or makes everyone else in the division look terrible, because the Saints were basically thinking, dude, we expected to tank, we expected to suck, and the rest of you are sucking. What's the deal? So that was the thing about the Saints, even though they are picking top 10 still, but that top 10 felt more like, okay, we still got a top 10 pick, but it didn't feel like it was going to be. And your best game that kind of made me emphasize the Saints are dangerous is Week 15 versus Carolina. This is a division foe. And the NFC South is one of those divisions that I felt like, take records out, it doesn't matter, let them play. Because we have seen teams that have 3 wins, but somehow they sweep the 13-win team. It's a weird thing in this division. And we hate each other. And no team is hated more than I think in the South than the Saints. I think a lot of it is Drew Brees, and then it was Cam Newton. And Atlanta was there, and Tampa, no one cared about Tampa until Brady, and even then it was barely a half a decade of anything. But Week 15 against Carolina, it was probably Tyler Shaw's, look what I can do with less resources. Remember, they traded Rashid. There were talks about Olave being gone. Kamara was on the way out as an age and productivity. Cam Jordan, the defense can only do so much. The defense was still pretty solid, but it wasn't as much of carrying the toll as you would think. So Tyler Shaw had to make do what it did, and with a 13-point swing at the end, basically after trailing by the Panthers, they went on a 13-point run to win the game, and with crucial, decisive, precision throws. And probably in a weird way, with his campaign of Tyler, probably make Chris Olave look like maybe he is worth the money. Some local people in New Orleans says Chris Olave is not a number 1 wide receiver money. But what are you going to do about it? So we'll see. So this was the game that, one, it was against a division foe. You were trailing big, and your rookie quarterback with the season pretty much already gone. And the best you can do is be spoilers, and you did. So this was the best game for New Orleans, because it kind of showcased they didn't quit. And that's something about New Orleans I'm also scared about, is that even when the season was lost, they still played like they were in, even though mathematically there was no way. but they still play like they were still in. And that to me shows more pride in the team than other teams that were trying to show they had pride. That's why the Saints scared me. Now, granted, a lot of players are gone, and we'll see what they do in the draft, but that's what scared me about the Saints. Then again, let's go to your worst game. Your worst game took place a few weeks earlier in Week 8 versus Tampa Bay, which, if you're a Saints fan, you might have been like, it was the worst game, but Tampa wasn't really that great either. Those 4 turnovers and that defensive touchdowns and the inverted whistle probably would make the score a lot bigger than it was. But take all that away, it led to Spencer Rattler's bench. The Tyler Shaw campaign begins. And for maybe Saints fan was thinking, yes, that game was bad. And for those that got tickets to see the game were thinking that was a bad experience going to the Dome and being like, wow, my Saints team getting their butts kicked by Tampa because, bust me, Tampa. But it opened the door to the Tyler Shaw campaign. And I think a lot of Saints fans saying, yes, that was a bad game, but the future through the season was more hopeful, and then the future beyond the season even brighter. And you still have a top 10 pick, but you got a young quarterback. Young as in NFL experience, not young as in age. I think Tyler Shaw is like in his mid-20s. So, yeah, so it's not young as in... Now, I was just double checking here quickly. He is... Yeah, he's 26 years old. Yeah. Not going to beat up a dead horse here. Let's go on the positive. This is a positive video. Positive. Yeah. So, we'll see what happens, small window, whatever it is. But the loss to Tampa, the Spencer Rattler, the turnovers, all that, division foe at home, forget that. It opened the door for the Tyler campaign, and it was the worst performance for a Bucs team that wasn't doing anything that made you... he had a goal line stand basically twice. Even that touchdown was not great either, so defense was still playing its butt off. See, pride is something that scares me. So, yeah, it was a worst game, but it led to Tyler. Be happy. MVP. It's Tyler. If Tyler was such a bright spot that, you can get we could probably put the MVP trophy to Kamara or Olave, but I feel a lot of it is based on just reputation a little bit too much. But I'm giving it to Tyler because even the game that they did lose during the Tyler campaign I'm taking a line from a reporter from Louisiana that says Tyler is not the reason why you guys lose. And sometimes for a rookie quarterback, that's probably the best compliment you can get after a loss. Your performance did not cause us to lose, but also kind of showed a lot of glaring weaknesses of the Saints that they probably had to deal with coming into it. But the big thing they're worried about was that Tyler's not the problem. And you're hoping, because we all know the sophomore slump is like that voodoo boogeyman in every rookie quarterback's campaign, is that. So to me, Tyler's your MVP because he is literally the light in the end of the tunnel. And with the way the division is kind of fluctuating, like I said, 2 or 3 wins in 2026 could determine a potential playoff berth. That's a risk, that's a stretch, but come on. Who thought New England was going to be in the Super Bowl last year? Who thought Seattle? So let's be hopeful and terrified. Grade I give the Saints. Yes, they'd had a losing record. But I'm telling you, if you look closer into the Saints and how many opportunities they had to beat these teams like Buffalo, San Fran, Arizona. Yes, they had a double-digit losing season, but I'm telling you, I'm still giving them a C. There is potential there. I know, a lot of veterans are gone. I get it. Age just happens. I get it. And we're banking on hoping that next year's better. But they're not worthy of a D grade because it's not like they were the Raiders or the Browns where they just got shellacked. When they lost, most of the time was by a possession or two. And the teams that they were clearly outmatched, like the Rams, was like, okay, we expected to get our butts kicked by the Rams and Seattle. But there are other matchups like Buffalo. You're thinking like, we could have stolen that one there. Atlanta, there were some games that we could have shifted away. So to me, it's a C. It's a C. Their record does not show it, but they're a C+ team. Now, when it comes to the draft, I am putting all my chips in the same way I did for Bryce Young in Carolina. Get your young quarterback a number one wide receiver. And I'm giving you 3 tries at this. In no real particular order, just based on what I have on my cheat sheet here. With the 8th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints could select Carnell Tate, wide receiver, Ohio State. Go with him. Or, with the 8th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints could select Makai Lemon, who is probably my star of approval for him at US from wide receiver USC. But if you want to take a risk on a receiver that I'm kind of worried about injuries here and his health, and this is only because I feel like if these two are, if Lemon and Tate are taken, you still need a wide receiver. I mean, look how much it helped Bryce Young in Carolina. So with the 8th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints selected Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. Go Sun Devils. Now, I heard talk about defensive linemen, pass rush, I get it. But there's a small problem with Kellen Moore, an offensive-minded head coach. And we saw, watch the last game of the season. Without Chris Olave, I feel like the Saints had no real receiver to help push the ball down the field, even though Tyler was still trying to push the ball down the field. So for me, look how much it helped Bryce Young. So to me, I know that people might consider pass rush to shore up that defense, but I just feel like Kellen Moore, fresh quarterback, showing promise, get him a new toy. Get him a toy and let him build chemistry for the next half a decade or plus. Okay? Do that. Seriously, do that. Do that. Who dat? New Orleans. And that's New Orleans Saints. The scariest team in the South. Seriously, they are. And I'm not being hyperbole. I am literally feeling like that. Not because I always feel like they have like the Bucks number in the worst case. So we're going to continue the NFC South by talking to a team that... the opposite of the Saints. They look terrible, but the record made them look like they were promising. And that would be the Atlanta Falcons. We'll talk about the Falcons, who just released their new jersey, which made me go, underwhelmed. Not really confident. And they just fired their GM and head coach to hopefully fix up the mess. But the mess they're trying to fix up is still making a mess. And we'll talk about that next time. So until then, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.